That's very impressive. That's very impressive. So what do you do now?
Well, I'm with Apple Computer now, working on networking and communication software. Mostly have been involved with intelligent new bus cards for the Macintosh 2.
And intelligent new bus cards are what kind of cards? I mean, is this...
They're cards we have that have 68,000 and typically about half a meg of RAM on them. And they function in parallel with the main CPU in the Mac 2, the 68,020 or 30.
So you have a 68,020 or 30, and then you have a 68,000 on the card?
That's right.
Okay, and is there an operating system that comes along with this, or does everybody have to write their own code?
No, I was one of the co-developers of a real-time operating system that runs on the coprocessor.
I see. And this is a release product? I mean, I could get this now?
Yeah, it's available to developers now.
So by developer, you mean a software developer?
That's correct.
Not hardware developers then, or?
Well, clearly hardware developers too. We have the complete platform, hardware, PAL equations, schematics, everything available for developers.
And you make that available to the third party?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, so all the hard stuff is done. I just put something on 68,000 and build a product.
That's right, and it works. That's the best part.
That's very impressive. Well, how do you compare today with yesterday? You know, I'm impressed in getting the show together with you that your life is all software. That,
yeah.
I mean, there are almost no artifacts. You have tapes, I mean, except for tapes, discs, printouts, every kind of magnetic media I've ever heard of, and some that I haven't seen very often. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be what your whole life centers around. Yeah,
it's all completely abstract. It's remarkable because when I was in high school, I was assigned to write a paper on something abstract, and I couldn't think of anything. And of course, it was right in front of me. Now I realize it, I guess.
So you bring some examples here of?
Yeah, I've got a 9-track tape here.
Just for comparison, how many megabytes does this hold?
Oh, in the vicinity of 30 to 40 megabytes. There's some really good stuff down around here.
Oh, yeah.
But it's hard to see on camera.
30 to 40 megabytes, huh?
Yeah.
And this is how many feet? 2,000 feet?
2,400 feet.
2,400 feet. So that's half a mile of tape.
This is 1,600 BPI.
Okay.
And well, we'll move up one generation. We got some 3.5-inch floppy disks. This is a box of around 50, roughly the same capacity as the tape.
And how many megabytes did you say that is?
Around 40.
40 megabytes. So there's about about 800K on each one of these disks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually have one in my pocket.
Yeah, right.
Now,
and this tape backup cartridge also is around 40 megabytes. But it's really hard to show the product of one's labor. You know, you can't get too excited about looking at a 40 megabyte tape cartridge.
And how many megabytes do you have there?
Do I have?
I mean, altogether in your program library.
Oh, probably somewhere in the vicinity of 400 to 600 megabytes.
600 megabytes?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
So hundreds of megabytes. Well, that's really interesting. And I see our time's getting short. Thanks for visiting us this week on High Tech Heroes. And you're all invited to join us again next week when Brian Gilchrist, a space scientist, will be here to explain the remote tether experiment he'll be conducting on an upcoming flight of the space shuttle. He and his research team believe that they will be able to generate a substantial amount of electricity simply by orbiting a wire through the Earth's magnetic field. Be sure to tune in to see a real space scientist. Speaking of future shows, reminds me, if anyone watching knows a technologist who'd be a good future guest on High Tech Heroes, please write us a letter and let us know. Be sure to include your suggested guest name and telephone number, a short description of what kind of technological work they've done, and a short description of the interesting project they're currently involved in. Please send your letter to Sherwin Gooch, High Tech Heroes, Foothill College TV Center, 12345 El Monte Road, Los Altos Hills, California, 94022. A little explanation of how we make our program might quell some fears and answer some questions. We're basically a gonzo video production. We don't pretend that we're not in the studio, and we don't do any editing. What you see is what happens when we turn the cameras on. So what our guests say can't be taken out of context. You see the entire context. And now that business is taken care of, it brings us to our thought for the day. Do you know what a catenary is? A catenary is a shape assumed by a hanging chain or string, just like this. Because the string has no resistance to bending, all of the forces are in tension, tangent to the curve of the string. It means along the edge of the string. That is, the string itself has no, only forces the string feels are pulling along the string, the length of the string. If you turn this shape upside down, which I can't do with a string, all of the vertical vectors invert, and you get a catenary arch in which all of the forces are in compression, tangent to the curve. Since many building materials are very strong in compression, large arches of this shape can be built. The gigantic arch in St. Louis, called the Gateway to the West, demonstrates this principle to perfection. But you can't get out of the rain by standing under a string, so this begs the question, is it possible to build a surface that is a dome, shaped something like this, which contains all compression forces tangent to the surface? I believe that it is, and I propose that a curve which is the solution to this problem is the integral of the hyperbolic sine of x squared dx. If anyone in our audience can prove this, we'd like to hear from you. Well, thanks again for being our guest on High-Tech Heroes this week, Mark. And it's been really fun talking about these old computers. You know, I've always wondered about, I heard a story about the 1130. That it has variable word length, I think, and it had parity bits. I heard that the first one went into the field, and some programmer set all the protect bits, and the...
Sounds like something Richard would do.
And they had to take the computer back to the factory because it was all protected, and nobody could write a program in it, even to erase the protection bits.
I might have done that accidentally.
You might have done that? Well...
Thank you for joining us this week on High-Tech Heroes. Be sure to tune in next week where we'll bring you more entertaining information about the people and ideas behind the scenes in high-tech industry. And now, this is your announcer, Tony Brazis, wishing you the best of luck and a pleasant summer. Au revoir. This episode of High-Tech Heroes has been made possible, in part, by grants from Gerry Brown and Associates of Saratoga, California, Kinetic Microscience of San Jose, California, Cybernetic Arts of Sunnyvale, California, and Big D Tools of Sunnyvale, California.